It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Joe. I'm really excited to be here and for this conversation. I'm a
Me
jazz
too.
girl. Look, I'm a jazz girly. I like jazz.
Okay, we'll get into that. And we got to say up front, this is kind of an exuberant moment because you're in St. Louis, I'm in Kansas City. We're kind of right here across state, so it's good. So
Listen, we may have to meet up in the middle for barbecue or something.
that's right. Absolutely. Yes. And we have it here for sure. So let's get into your good work. And I want to begin before we get into all of the coaching and consulting. I want to know 5 years ago, we were knee deep in this pandemic, all of the unknowns, everything was changing. How did you survive a pandemic and how has it influenced the way that you approach clients and work today?
So during the pandemic, I was a corporate girly. I was still in corporate at the time. And I remember turning my storage closet into my home office and my garage into my gym. So that is how I survived
Yeah.
COVID for because part of my normal routine was going to the gym a couple days a week. I would take classes or work out with my trainer, and that was like the couple weeks of not doing that. I was not a very nice person to be around. Ask my ex-husband. He didn't become an ex because of COVID, though.
Right.
Let me just say that.
Sure.
But I needed to make some changes for me in order to like create some level of normalcy.
Yeah.
And so those were some of the things that I did to create a way of going to the office. So I had a room with a door on it. So when I went in, I was in the office. And when I at the end of the day, I would close the door and I'm no longer in the office, which was a very different dynamic than sitting at my kitchen table working. And when I would see my laptop, I would just be compelled to sit down and do some work. And I felt like I was always on, which can, create this whole, draining burnout type of experience. And so I needed to make some shifts to help me shift mentally as well as physically.
So kids always get the truth out of you. Let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis in 2025. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds. It's career day, and the
Mhm.
curious kid in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
So I have young grandchildren. So this is how I tell my 6-year-old granddaughter what grandma does on a day-to-day basis because she's into tech and all those types of things. All the things that you get to buy in the store, they start somewhere. They start as an idea for you know, for men and women. They start in their minds. You have ideas, right? And so those ideas become real through the work that grandma does. And so sometimes we're making, the toy that you have right here, we're making that, or we may make mommy's notebook. But all of those things start as an idea. So what grandma gets to do is help those ideas become real so people can buy them.
So, what did you want to be when you were 12 years old? What was your dream life, dream job?
Honestly, I wanted to be a lawyer and a doctor.
So, did you pursue either?
No.
Okay. So take me back to where you were born and raised. What were the foundational elements that have allowed you to become kind of a guru, a consultant to help people find their passion and their place?
So I'll take you back. So one, I was born and raised in the inner city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. So I probably have a very old soul because I spent a lot of time around a lot of wisdom, sitting at the feet of wisdom, foundationally, family, integrity, and hard work ethic were really things that I saw my grandparents do and that they really lived by. They were 10 toes down for their employers, and many of them worked at the same place for a gazillion years and retired from those places. And I'm like, who does that? Uh,
Yeah,
but that's what they did. There was stability in the home, which was really important. Those Sunday family dinners, those were a real thing.
yeah.
And those are something that I looked forward to when I had my own children. They looked forward to just to be able to knit that connection with family. So those things are foundational for me.
So when did you know that you were going to become a global executive? And then when did you know you were going to turn that into consulting? What was the moment that you knew that was your path?
So, a couple things I'll say about that. One, I had no idea I was going to become a global executive, but I knew I was going to become something,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah,
I remember this conversation with my father. I was 18. I was 18 years old, and I was in the hospital about to have my daughter. And it was not a happy-go-lucky conversation, Joe, by any means.
Yeah.
By any means of the stretch of the imagination. He was very upset that his 18-year-old daughter was having a kid.
Yeah.
And he expressed every bit of that sentiment to me on the telephone. I remember that conversation very vividly because it was in that conversation that he spoke what could have been death. And this is my words, right? It could have been death to my future if I allowed it to hit and land that way and affect me in that way. But what it became was fuel. It became the fuel that I needed to really, I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to prove you wrong. And that is what was really motivating and a driving factor for me to really become and give myself the opportunity to become. No ceiling, no limits, right? I could become whatever I want to be. We tell kids all the time, you could become president. And the reality is they could,
Yeah.
if they're willing to do the work and do the things necessary in order to strive for that. And so that was a real motivating factor for me. And then the other pivot was I was working in financial services, and I was executive assistant at the time. And I was in a pool of assistants. There were a couple of us. I think there were five of us. And I was supporting the first female executive when in the division. And she was like a unicorn.
Yeah.
Just like a unicorn. I was like, oh, they have women that do this.
Yeah.
But she was a badass. I mean, like very confident, not arrogant, but confident and really certain of herself and her skills and what she brought to the table. And I was assigned to supporting her. And I was miserable for about 6 months because this lady was like, she was whipping me. I would go home and I would just cry, like, this should not be this hard. And I remember my ex-husband, he's like, if you want to quit, quit. Because I'm like, I want to quit. And he was like, look, we got these kids. I don't know about quit. But he finally said, you can quit. And I remember going into the office and having my meeting with her and giving her my resignation. And she said, I'm not going to accept this from you today. If you decide that you want to resign tomorrow, I'll let you. I'll accept it. But what you need to understand is I see greatness in you. I see more in you and more for you than you probably even realize you're capable of. And I am offering you the opportunity to tap into all of that by working with me.
Yeah.
You can be a part of the pool and you can be average just like the rest of them, or you can be something better. And I was like, no one had ever spoken that type of life into me or to say to me that they saw greatness in me. And so I remember driving home and I was like, this can this be real?
Yeah.
And I remember going back to the office the next day and telling her I wanted to understand and I wanted to be able to see in me what she saw in me. And she said, then rip that up and let's go to work.
Wow. That's wonderful. So, who has been that inspirational force for you to evolve in your career and become who you are today?
I would honestly have to say my kids.
Yeah.
So I'm a mom of seven.
Okay.
I have one daughter and I had six sons. And it was my daughter was first, and she was really for me, I wanted to show her that there was no limits on who she could be or what she could become. But then it became, I wanted all of them to know that there were no limits on them. They could do whatever makes them happy. I just wanted them to figure that out. My oldest son is a dog trainer. He loves it. Now, that might not have been the career I would have chosen for him, but it is the thing that allows him to have joy in his heart and leap out of bed. He doesn't have the Monday morning blues when it comes time to go to work. He's excited to go. He feels like I get to do this thing. And so that's what I wanted for all of them. And they're so different. They're so vastly different. They all do very different things, but I couldn't be prouder of them tapping into and finding the things that bring them joy and really chasing after that.
So, if you could meet one person on the planet right now that has been in an executive role or just whether it's your career path or otherwise that you would like to meet and talk to and see how they work, ask questions, who would it be?
Honestly, it would be Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
She has this amazing career path all on her own. And, everybody talks about her being the first lady. And Absolutely, she was.
Yeah.
And she still, listen, she's still cool to this day. But I would love to understand what her journey was and all of those things. And I think that there are things I could learn from her, that I am, I have her book and all of those types of things, but there's nothing like sitting down with a person and being able to ask those intimate questions that don't necessarily come through the pages.
So I listened to her biography, and I think about her career trajectory and risks that were taken that maybe the outside world wouldn't have seen. But I would think the fact that in the beginning she decided that she was going to support this political rise of Barack was probably a pretty big risk for her because she's
Hmm.
just this girl from Chicago that just came from this family, didn't really like the limelight, wasn't looking for it the way Barack was.
Hmm.
So my question to you is this: when you look at your career trajectory, what's the biggest risk that you've taken?
Ooh, taking a few.
Yeah,
But I would really say the journey I'm on right now.
yeah,
Being an entrepreneur is a big pivot for me. But when after I was politely reorged and politely asked to leave, I had an opportunity to take on, just bounce into another organization and another corporation. Um, and what I really thought about was this was something that was burning inside of me to do. It was when I think about the job that I did and the opportunities that I had, the one thing that was the through line was the fact that I got to pour into and develop other people and to help them recognize the greatness within them. And that was the thing that made me leap out of bed every day. That was the thing that I was so thoroughly excited to do, to help people see the greatness within them, just like that female executive saw in me and helped me to identify within myself. And so that is, I'm like, I want to see what this can become. I want to give myself the opportunity to do that 100% of the time. And so that is, I would say this is the biggest risk that I've taken, but it's probably the one thing that I'm most excited about still to this day. It's been 9 months. It's been 9 months of a journey. But it has been the one I've learned a lot about myself in this journey, that I didn't even know, existed.
yeah.
I know I'm tenacious and I'm resourceful, and I'm resilient, but to the depths that I have had to demonstrate those things as an entrepreneur, um, it's a whole nother level that you have to do. But I'm here, and as you can see, I'm smiling, Joe.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting. So you had somebody that believed in you and gave you that opportunity and that emboldened your confidence. Have you done that for somebody else? Have you paid that idea forward to someone younger?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, I have a lot of people that I've worked with that are definitely like my kids' ages, outside of me. I feel like and my goal is never to create many versions of myself.
Yeah.
It is really for people to understand their unique abilities, their unique skill sets, and how they can show up as their best version in the world and take up all the space that they're capable of taking up and consuming, and to see them grow their careers and to go from graduating college to being a vice president or leading their own team on a global scale and things of that nature. I am like the proudest of mom corporate mommies that there could be, to see them just tap to blossom and grow and flourish and just be these quintessential badasses in the world, and not just in the corporate space, but doing that on a fundamental level in nonprofits and paying it forward for others, and helping to shape and change the world that they're living in because they know that they can.
So how having seven children and obviously having a reliance and a focal point on family and business, what has been your philosophy? How do you balance that out? Every day you wake up, what is the motivation to make sure that there's either a level of equilibrium or that you're doing everything in the best possible way?
So I would say I didn't do that great initially.
Yeah,
Hence why I wrote a book about burnout, because I've crashed and burned, Joe.
yeah,
I
yeah.
crashed and burned. And when you're a high achieving individual, you don't necessarily think that or believe that burnout is something that you're susceptible to. And I didn't. my burnout is for other people. Lazy people burn out because they don't have a work ethic, things of that nature. I'm just a little tired. I'll catch up on my sleep on the weekend. But I was burning the candle on both ends and in the middle, constantly available at work. You know, when I'm not at the office, I'm carting kids somewhere. Uh, and while I'm in the stands cheering, I'm still doing emails and all things. So I was always plugged in, getting very minimal sleep, um, lots of skipped lunches because, my days were packed with meetings back to back a lot of times, and a lot of meals taken in the car.
Yeah.
And not necessarily going to the gym, not taking the best care of myself, quality sleep, and all of the things, right, that we know does the body good.
Yeah.
And my body was definitely keeping score. And I literally caught my own reflection in my kitchen window one night. And I was like, who is that chick? Who is she? I, at my heaviest, I was 287 pounds,
Yeah.
and my knees hurt, my back hurt, and all the things. And I didn't get to that point overnight. That wasn't the only thing that was going on with me. I was having migraines, and literally to the point where I was waking up in a full-blown migraine. Who gets a migraine when they're sleeping? Like, come on. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what was happening to me. And to understand that now, like to find my way back to me, was a journey to really being very intentional about how I move. And as a leader, understanding that it didn't mean that I had to do it all, but how to delegate, not dump, because there's a difference, but how to delegate into things to others that gives them an opportunity to grow and develop skills, creating, which then creates a bench strength, right? They're learning something new. I'm getting support that's necessary. And now I've created this ecosystem of people that have capabilities and skill set and bandwidth to do more.
So let's say you have a dream tonight and you can run into that 18-year-old version of you before you're giving birth. And you can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've accumulated. What advice would you impart?
The advice that I would impart is you get to choose. And what I mean by that is I think so often we want other people to co-sign the what we want, what we believe, to the extent that sometimes we'll forego choosing that because others don't believe in it.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to choose you. I started to wear my shirt that said plot twist, I choose me as I'm thinking through this.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to choose you every day. To choose you every day to give yourself the best opportunity. And that is really shown for me. I think I've shown my children how to choose them every day.
Yeah.
And in choosing themselves, that's not selfish, but it is really allowing them to be the best versions of themselves so that they can show up in an optimal way in their jobs, in their relationships, for themselves better than anything else. They know exactly what they need. And sometimes we do ourselves a detriment by not choosing ourselves or choosing others ahead of ourselves.
So let me ask you this. If you were to walk into a room of everybody that's known you in kind of a corporate sense, a business sense, you swim through that group of people and go to a podium and you can tell them one fun thing about you. Some fun story, first concert, you wrestled an alligator, you got chased by a bear, something fun that would make them see you in a different light. What would be a great story you would tell that room?
Oh my God, chased by a bear. Not quite chased by a bear.
Right.
Um, Best concert. So I'm definitely a Prince fan.
Okay.
And so my very dear friend Cynthia and I, like, we went everywhere together, and as kids, bicycling all over the city of Milwaukee and all the things, dressing alike. We went to Summerfest, which is a big thing in Milwaukee, and largest outdoor concert series around in the summertime, several weeks. And we went to the Prince concert, and we were like going to walk home because we're like, oh, we'll just walk until it's time to catch a bus. Torrential downpour. I mean, the sky opened up and it was like they were pouring buckets of water down on us. And we literally snuck into the hospital, which was right there by the lakefront. But we had no money, Joe.
Yeah.
We had no money to call for a ride.
Yeah.
And we literally are sneaking around, drenching wet, in the hospital trying to find a phone that we could use. And we ended up in this part of the hospital that was closed off. And she's on the lookout. And I'm making a phone call to my cousin to come pick us up and praying that we don't get caught.
Yeah.
And my cousin like didn't want to answer the phone because he didn't recognize the phone
Oh
number.
no. Oh no.
It was pretty bad. It
Yeah,
was pretty
that's
bad.
bad.
But it was the best concert
Oh yeah.
ever.
Absolutely.
I was hoarse for days, um, for days. And my as a teenager, my body hurt in places I didn't even know it could hurt.
That's serious. Being a teenager too.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
wild. Yeah, he came to Kansas City one time. There's a story from years ago. There was an old blues club downtown, and he played at Kemper Arena. And when
Mhm.
he came, he after the show, he came up to a club called the Grand Emporium, and they literally closed the doors and only sold like 250 tickets. And he did an after show, and people said it was one of the most amazing things they've ever seen. And he would do that all the time. That was kind of a part of
Mhm.
what he did. He loved those private engagements. So,
Every time he's been to Milwaukee, I've been in the crowd.
that's awesome. I
Mhm.
never got to see him live, but I've only heard amazing things. He was so talented, you know?
So very talented. Like, and I will have to say this. I love Esperanza Spalding. I've seen her
Yeah.
several times as well. I love her. But the favorite concert right now, top of my list, would have to be Lionel Richie.
Wow. Yeah. I mean,
And
he's
I didn't
leaving.
even, here's the thing, I didn't want to go see him. I was like, Lionel Richie, why would I want to go see Lionel Richie?
Yeah.
And my friend convinced me to go. So we went. He was playing at the Wynn in Las Vegas. And someone was in our seats. And then they were like, "Oh, your seats are upstairs." Somewhere it was in those seats. I was like, "Look at here, you better have a seat for me." We ended
Uh-huh.
up in the second row at
Wow.
the Wynn,
Wow.
best seats in the house. And Chris Tucker was actually in the audience that night.
Wow.
We had better seats than Chris Tucker, which I'm
Wow.
like, "How does that
Yeah, right.
happen?" And it was like the best like I am thoroughly I'm like Lionel, you are the truth. Like I had no idea that he had that much comedic timing and talent.
Oh, yeah.
He's funny, but he's also a great artist.
Yeah.
So like I had a best time.
I mean, you got to figure if Quincy Jones is leaning on him for We Are the World and looking at him as a beacon, there's a reason. And sometimes we
Hmm.
don't know that, but there's
Hmm.
a reason why things happen the way they do. And he came from Motown. When you talk about jazz, it's like Louis Armstrong and all those early practitioners of the art form.
Hmm.
But Motown was a different flavor, and he was the beginnings of that.
Hmm.
Diana Ross and all of those musicians, they came from a different ilk. It was a different brand, a different
Yes.
genre, a different idiom, and they
Hmm.
just, I mean, there's a bedside manner too that they have that's different, that's not happening now.
Hmm.
So let me ask you this: of everything that you've accomplished and evolved into in your life at this point, what are you the proudest of?
I'm the proudest of being able to be a grandma.
Yeah.
Best job ever.
Yep.
My grandmother told me you will understand when you have grandchildren of your own. And I remember being there when Ruby was born. And literally, when she looked into my eyes, I was like, heart expansion actually happens in real time. And I didn't think my heart could get any bigger. I love my kids, but my grandkids, I love my grandkids in a way that I didn't even thought was possible to
Yeah.
love another human being. And I am thoroughly invested in her growth, in all of their growth and their development, and watching them just evolve and become human, their own human versions, right?
Yeah.
She is very opinionated, Lord help us. But I cannot wait to see the women that and the young men that they become. So
Yeah.
Ruby is the oldest, and she's definitely leading the charge of my pumpkin patch. And then there's Mariana and Marcel. And let me tell you, the world is not ready for my grandbabies.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I hear that all the time. So I got to know this: if everyone out there has an idea or a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh wow, who do I think? I think that's a great question, Joe.
Fun.
That never
It's
had
fun
that
for
one.
me.
Wait a minute.
All right.
Uh, um, so honestly, I do think I'm a badass. I am fun. I love a good time. I love to travel and have experiences. I love to experience other cultures. I think it expands my worldview and shows me how much I have in common with those that are different from me, but yet very much like me. And I think that there is more that I'm yet to do and give in this world while there's still breath in my lungs and blood flowing through my veins. But yeah, I think a lot of people think that I'm just like a hard ass, and I can be.
Yeah.
And I can be, and I know this, but I also have a big heart, and those that have an opportunity to experience that know that. But there is a selection process.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get it. So if anyone wants to get your books, if they want to hire you, they want to reach out, any of the good business, they have questions, where do they go?
DanaLCox.com.
Okay. Not to be confused, as before we got on here, there's a doppelganger out there.
There's a doppelganger out there. She does real estate. I do not do real estate,
Okay.
although I do business acquisition.
There we go.
There's a difference.
So we will make sure to have the correct spelling, the links, everything in the show notes.
Yes.
Final question. What's the best thing about living in St. Louis?
Ooh, I love the there's so many things I love about living here, but the live music, just the how many different live music experiences there are going on at any one given night. Like just to be able to have my pick, what type of music I want to go hear and see and experience, and just the ability to be outside. I do think that there's a lot of external activities that happen outside of the house
Yeah.
that allows you to get around the people and experience the people of St. Louis, which this is my second time living here.
Yeah.
And you don't go back to some place you don't like.
Yeah. Right. Well, I noticed that in Kansas City, we won't get acts, and we'll be like, when are they going to be here? But they're in St. Louis. Like
Mhm.
there's always that thing. There's a draw. So, well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. It's been delightful, and best of luck with everything.
Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate spending time with you, and I love this conversation. So, till the next time.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.